With the Thanksgiving holiday coming up here in the United States, are you more concerned about Black Friday sales, decorating, and buying gifts for Christmas? Whatever happened to celebrating the true meaning of Thanksgiving instead of football, turkey, and pumpkin pie? Well, joining us to share the history we may be missing is Christian historian William Federer. He's author of many books relevant to understanding American faith, history, and culture. And most appropriate for this week is his book, The Treacherous World of the 16th Century, and How the Pilgrims Escaped It, the prequel to America's freedom. Bill, it's always good to talk with you. It seems like we go right from Halloween in this country to Christmas sales, gift buying. We skipped right over Thanksgiving as a holiday kind of in between that gets less attention. And I know if you're like me, you contend it should be one of the most important holidays we celebrate. Why?
Well, one of the things I bring out is that king is the most common form of government in world history. Nimrod, Pharaoh, Caesar, Kaiser, Sultan, Tsar. And as the centuries go on, the kingdoms get bigger because with military advancements, kings can kill more people. And so the King of England had the biggest empire the world had ever seen. He was a globalist. He was a one world government guy. And you had a top-down form of church government and civil government. Well, after the Reformation, you have people studying the Bible, but what part of the Bible, the first 400 years out of Egypt, before they had a king? It's called the Hebrew Republic. This was studied by the Puritans and studied by the Pilgrims. It's a congregational form of church government. And when the Pilgrims came across, they were going to land in Virginia, but got blown off course, landed in Massachusetts. And they didn't want to get off the boat and be lawless. So they did the Mayflower Compact, which was basically taking their covenant congregational church form of government and making it their civil government. We, in the presence of God, covenant ourselves together to form a civil body politic. And so this is revolutionary. In the womb of the Mayflower is conceived the child of self-government. It goes from top down to bottom up. Instead of like a dead pyramid where you have to obey government mandates, it's bottom up where it's government from the consent of the governed. And so in New England, you had churches founding cities. You had the First Baptist Church in America founding the city of Providence, Rhode Island. You had the first Congregationalist Church in America founding the city of Hartford, Connecticut. Everybody's involved in church and everybody's involved in the city government because it's the church founding the city. It eventually turned into our Constitution, and the word federal is Latin for covenant.
And Bill, the New York Times and those who advocate a rewriting of American history with the 1619 Project misunderstand what the Pilgrims, Puritans were up against, why they came to America. You touched on that a little bit, but it never had anything to do with slavery or subjugating Native Americans. Enlighten us a little more.
Right. So the left does something called deconstruction. It's a socialist concept where you say bad things about a country's past so that the students emotionally detach from them. And then you get them into a neutral where they don't remember where they came from. You do comparative religions, and then you introduce them to a socialist, Islamist, or alternative sexual agenda future. It's a drive neutral reverse process. Europe went through this. It went from a Judeo-Christian Europe with 1,000 years of Catholic cathedrals, Protestant Reformation, and Jewish neighborhoods to a secular French Revolution Europe where free sex, anything goes, and now it's turning into a socialist, even Sharia Europe in many cases, with Muhammad being the #1 name for newborns. And so this process of wanting to malign the past ignores the price that the Pilgrims had paid. So in England, you had to believe what the king tells you to believe, or you were put in jail. They didn't even feed you in the English jail. You had to have some friend that missed you. And the Pilgrims, they were not part of the Anglican Church. The king was the head of the Anglican Church. Puritans were inside of the Anglican Church trying to purify it. But the Pilgrims were separatists. They were basically Baptists, and they separated themselves, met in secret barns and basements by candlelight. And then they were going to flee to Holland. 7 united provinces wanting to break away from Spain. Took them 80 years to do it. But then after 12 years in Holland is when these Pilgrims decided to come to the New World. One of the fascinating stories is that of Squanto. So the Pilgrims were religious, but not everybody else was. And they would lure Indians on the boat, take them to Malaga, Spain, sell them into slavery. That's what happened to Squanto. Some monks allowed him to get his freedom. He hitchhiked his way across Europe. He goes to England, and he's working in England, this American Indian, for like almost a dozen years, and then finally finds a boat to drop him off in the coast of America, only to find that his entire tribe had died in a plague. And lo and behold, it was such a thorough plague, the other tribes wouldn't take that land. Well, the Pilgrims happened to land on that one spot. Half of them died the first winter, one of them being your relative, if I understand correctly. And here's Squanto talking to them saying, oh, you guys from London? Yeah, I used to live there. Oh, yeah, St. Paul's Chapel, all this. And, oh, in this area, I grew up here. He knew that like the back of his hand, and he taught him how to catch fish and plant corn. And William Bradford said he was a special instrument sent of God for their good beyond their expectation. He was their interpreter, put them on good terms with the Indians, and they had the first Thanksgiving that went on for 3 days. First Thanksgiving, there were twice as many Indians as there were Pilgrims.
William Federer, historian, author, thank you for sharing your time and insights as we, here in the United States, prepare to celebrate Thanksgiving 404 years after the arrival of the Mayflower and the Pilgrims. Thank you.
Thank you.